Okay, serious question. Is crypto really that new at this point? If you're like 25 or 35, or sorry, 25, then maybe not. But let me tell you something right there now. Until 2020 and COVID happened, and then the 2021 thing, it wasn't mainstream. You may think it was mainstream because you were involved in that. But the average American didn't have a clue about the world of crypto. Just because you heard about something does not mean you understand it or involved in it, right? Like, I have heard, okay, I've heard about, I gotta be very careful. There's like 50,000 things that just popped into my head ready to go out. And I'm like, nope, shuffle it. Nope, shuffle it. Give me something better. Nope, shuffle it. Give me something better. Just because you're aware something exists does not mean everybody is understands it, right? Things are new for people because unless it's like something that's a part of their everyday. I'll give you an example. If you got into the stock market for the first time, like really getting into it anytime after 2021, the stock market's new to a lot of people. Now, you might say to yourself, 4 years isn't new stock. Yeah, I've been in the trenches for 4 years. This isn't about understanding the market. It's still relatively new. 62% of Americans have exposure to the stock market right now, as opposed to 45% pre-COVID. That's 50% increase. 20% of Americans, okay, and let's say you cut it in half, go at 180 million, right? So you're talking about upwards of 40 million people being involved in the stock market now that were not involved 6 years ago. And they're very casual to it. They don't turn it on. They don't eat, breathe, and whatever like that. People like us who were involved in it of all aspects, all day, every day, we're those people. But all the people who've come in who are casual or learning about it or getting involved, they're new to us. So is crypto still new? Well, compared to what? Investing in the stock market? Yes. Because Bitcoin, if you want to say it's legitimacy or mainstream or whatever, crypto, let's say it's just Bitcoin, you're talking about what? 10, 15 years max? As opposed to the stock market, which is almost 150 years old? What about real estate? That's as old as time. What about gold? That's tens of thousands of years. What about oil? I mean, shit, they've been, for at least since the Industrial Revolution, well, not Revolution, but at least since the turn of the century, 100 years. So when you look at the grand scheme of investing, crypto is still relatively new. It's relatively new. And when something is new, and especially as volatile as it's been on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, you add those two factors, there's a lot of people that are scared or worried about putting their money in crypto. And you can't blame them because especially when a time when the markets are so crazy and people are worried about bubbles and stuff like that, they at least can look back and say, hey, every time the S&P 500 has fallen, it's gone back up. And over a course of 100 years, every dip has gone higher and higher. I can look at that with confidence and say, yeah. But when you look at something like crypto, I mean, here's the thing, right? You might say, yeah, it makes sense. Oh, we got stopped at LBRX. You might say, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, look, the same thing has happened with Bitcoin. Sure, it has. But look at the time frame difference, right? So you're talking about from 2015, in 10 years, this is what's happened. And you might say to yourself, well, Stocky, that's awesome. Anybody would buy that. But when you're talking only 15 years, that's not a long track record. It is for you if you're 25 years old or 30 years old, because guess what? That's 50% of your life. That's 50% of your life. So it feels like that. Now add that to the S&P 500, right? So yeah, so I would say that you know, okay. So if you go to all time, right? That's very short for a lot of people, right? We're talking about 1871 to now versus this. So while it looks good, you're like, hey, it looks just like the other chart. You should buy. If you're going to buy the S&P 500, you should buy Bitcoin. You may look at it that way. Somebody who, wow, we sold TSSI for an 8% gain. It's now 5% red. Holy hell, what a play that was. So that's why when you say to yourself, is it really new? In the grand scheme of things, it is. In the grand scheme of things, it is. And so people are saying, okay, I want to see how this works out first. And so, again, you're always going to have that fight of, wow, my hive leaps are going nuts. You're always going to have that fight of do I want more regulation on this to bring more money in to pump my bags, or to give it more legitimacy, or to let me grow more? Or do I want it? Because there's a problem here. And this is going to sound effed up, and I'm probably going to piss people off, but I do that best. There's a million types of crypto people, but in the beginning, everybody wanted Bitcoin to be the alternative. Either alternative or the deregulated outside the system, the, anti-government, well, not anti-government, but like outside the scope of government regulations, a true form of commerce, right? A true form of store of value that you can cross borders with. It can't be manipulated. It can't be messed with by federal central banks. It can't be messed with by governments. It is a true form of value that holds across borders, that is peer-to-peer and is controlled by the people. The problem is that as it became more mainstream and the value went up and the amount of people getting into it, those same people started saying, wait a second. I held this because it was, I could trade trade 3,000 of these for 2 pizzas. But now I can trade 30 of these for fucking 10 houses. You know what? Maybe the government and the maybe some of the consolidation ain't so bad after all. Now you got a couple people out there who probably sold their Bitcoin and were like, hey, this ain't what I wanted it to be. But I guarantee you the people who originally wanted it as that thing are still holding it and going, they didn't get rid of it because they're like, oh, this isn't what I got it for. They're like, fuck it, my bags are getting pumped. And as more and more consolidation happens and more oversight happens, the more it pumps those bags. And so a lot of people are very happy about that. And why would they be? Because those people, I'm not shitting on everybody or anything like that. I'm just saying, but those people that have it are keeping it because they think it's going to be worth more down the line, which means they're planning on selling it for that profit or in return for something in those dollars as opposed to being the alternative. Because it's kind of changed. It's not their fault. It's just the world kind of changed it. And that happens with things. So in some people's mind, they want to get into it as a form of an investment. So you have people that want it as a currency. Well, they don't call it currency anymore. You have the people that want to hold it as a store of value, even though there's no like tangible value. But there's also the group of people who want to invest in it. They want to buy it because there's a supply and demand thing where they say there's scarcity, which means there's more value, which means I can then turn around and sell it for more dollars or yen or whatever it is down the line. And I think most people are on the second level now, and that's why we're seeing Bitcoin reserves and Bitcoin treasuries and Bitcoin buys. And I mean, Harvard now has a Bitcoin treasury. Their endowment is turning into a Bitcoin treasury. So yeah, it's becoming more mainstream. I'm not judging you on how you look at it. You look at it however you want. It's between you and your money. But I think that it is becoming more mainstream, but it's still, there are a lot of people out there that are skeptical and hesitant because they always hear the negative things of something. Like when you hear about the stock market. When I say, oh, well, if the stock market goes down and never comes back up, you have more things to worry about than your 401k. And then somebody will say, what about Japan? And you know how frustrated I get when somebody says, what about Japan? I'm like, are you seriously comparing 1980s Japan to now to America? It's the same thing that when somebody says, you should get involved in, look at this chart. You should invest in that. Yeah, but what about the pump and dumps I heard about? What about the rug pulls I heard about? And you're like, are you really comparing a fucking shitcoin like XRP to Bitcoin? You see what I'm saying? Now you're understanding what I mean? That's the same kind of feeling it is. So there's like long-term legitimacy versus other things, and there's people that are going to get it. So now when I tell somebody buy the dip on the S&P ETF or invest in this, look at there's 100 years, every dip goes up, you can't compare it. That's the kind of thing that happens with that legitimacy. So I just spent 20 minutes answering your question. So yeah, back to what I was saying. That's cool with Polymarket. Appreciate Coinbase for asking my boomer butt to check this out. I'm going to give my honest opinion here. I learned something. I did learn something. And I think it's really cool that there's now an option out there for me to find all this information about a company. And that allows me to like kind of do like I do with stocks and at least understand before I buy something, before I go on the Base app and either buy or sell or something like that. So all in all, I learned something. I actually learned something. And I'm not saying that because they sponsor me. They literally said, if you think this is shit, say it's shit. Obviously some of the tokens on here are things I wouldn't invest in and companies I wouldn't invest in. That's going to be anywhere. But as far as like, this helps me, my boomer butt, at least understand something more before I talk about it. And I'm going to be real with you. In the future, if private companies tokenize their shares or do them on the digital space, as opposed to going, I think we're headed that way because that's the thing about these private equity things, right? Like the ability for private equity to allow people to be able 401ks to invest in private equity. Well, it's a great opportunity for people who know what they're doing. A lot of people are going to get effed up because private equity is going to love the liquidity, right? But we're moving to a point where this seems like it's more of a reality. Robinhood's already offering tokenization of private companies like OpenAI, because OpenAI doesn't want to go public, right? Because they don't want a board of directors, and they don't want to. They want to be able to do funding rounds, whatever. And if they could do it to retail, I think some people with companies, maybe not OpenAI, I don't know, are going to be able to that are informed, are going to be able to make good decisions. But some people are probably just going to buy something and get wiped, and that's always going to happen. But if this does become the future, I want to understand it rather than being that boomer sitting back yelling about it. So I actually really learned something. This is kind of cool to me. I think it's really true, and I'm saying that 100%. This is legitimately something I didn't understand. I have a lot more to understand. I probably understand 5% of everything I would need to, but that's 5% more in the right direction. And being able to look it up, see the charts, see the finances, and understand that, because this is what I understand. You guys, when it comes to crypto, you understand. You saw a little bubble chart, you knew everything that was happening. You saw a blockchain, you understand what that. You saw you understood that. Me, I'm just like, funny meme coin, buy or sell. But this I understand. I understand numbers. I understand finances. And so if tokenization or crypto or digital stocks and investments are the future, it's probably good that I get knowing it. So I'm actually glad that I stumbled upon that. They reached out to me and I looked at this because it's interesting. I think for the right people, something like this, people that really want to get involved in this, it's definitely where it's at. And if you're going to use a platform to actually purchase digital, whether it's digital tokens or coins or however they do their investment, you're gonna want to make sure you do use a legit platform. And Coinbase is probably one of the most legit, as far as offering platforms out there. So I would say, I'm not telling you to do it. I'm not telling you to buy or sell or invest anything. But if you are going to do it, make sure you do use a legit platform so you guys don't go onto places that do rug you. I don't want to see you guys eating your own bodily fluids in a cage in your basement trying to get the price of some coin up, or being that person being used as exit liquidity. At least go to whether it's Coinbase or the Base app or not, go somewhere that gives you that kind of anything. All right.